Moving on to House of the Dragon Season 2. Prequel set hundreds of years before Game of Thrones. As we said in the opening, it's going to be a spoiler-free episode, but there are elements of the inherent structure of the show that will probably be spoiled if you haven't seen it already. Should I just go into it?
Go.
House of the Dragon Season 2 picks up directly after the events of Season 1. After the death of Viserys Targaryen, the Targaryens, a royal house who sit on the Iron Throne, bloodline, dragon riders. You've got to be a Targaryen to ride dragons. They have dragons. They are massive allegories for nuclear bombs. There are big ones, intercontinental ballistic missile ones, hydrogen bomb ones, and they rumble in the crypts of the towers of King's Landing.
Well done for getting to the end of that
Thank
sentence.
you, Viserys Targaryen dies and leaves the rightful heir to the Iron Throne in dispute. There are two sides of the family that both have a legitimate claim to the Iron Throne. We are two factions of the family split off. Rhaenyra Targaryen with Daemon splits off to Dragonstone, and of course Aegon sits now on the Iron Throne with his brother Aemond, the villainous, skinny, enormous chin with the eye patch.
I'm a villain.
I'm a villain.
Look at me, I'm a villain.
His chin is enormous. Sometimes when you see it...
That's that actor's real chin.
I know, I'm just saying. Sometimes when the camera shoots behind it and you see it like down, you're like, Jesus, good Lord. He's very good at it.
He's terrific.
And then you've got a lady, Alicent Hightower, played by Olivia Cooke. You've got Rhaenyra Targaryen, played by Emma Darcy. Matt Smith is in there as Daemon. The main plot sense of this is that there is an exchange and a waging power struggle between who is going to be able to raise an army to either storm King's Landing or eliminate the false claims to the throne. There is a struggle of who has the most dragons, how big are they, and how is that going to ultimately play out. We got a shorter season this time round of 7 episodes, which I think was quite...
8, actually. But that doesn't matter.
Sorry, 8 episodes, which I thought was quite telling. But yeah, this is season 1, by the way, you and I really enjoyed.
Very much so.
You can listen to our review back when that finished, and I think we were broadly quite disappointed by the ending of Game of Thrones, and we're a little bit cynical ahead of this, thinking you're just trying to make more. We didn't really believe that it could work. Lo and behold, we go into that series and we were reminded of what a great political drama Game of Thrones is. House of the Dragon is, and it just really delivered in all of those elements. But House of the Dragon Season 2, George, how did you get on with it?
I mean, terrific. Absolutely terrific. What a wonderful feeling to be watching a show that from the very beginning of Season 1 through to the end of Season 2 is performing at the height of quality that Game of Thrones was at its peak. You have... it's not the Tits and Dragons show anymore. Far less nudity, thank goodness.
My most cynical take on Game of Thrones was that if it was crap, I was like, is this just Tits and Dragons on a Sunday night?
You get more dragons, but far fewer... I'd say really little nudity, which is good because it didn't need...
There was one shot of
a
guy giving... someone giving someone else head.
In a brothel.
It's silhouetted.
Yes, but... I think it's terrific.
Less objectification.
I'm wondering. I think it's fantastic, and I think it continues to be great. I love the narrative structure actually of the show, which is this constant sort of pendulum swing between each of the two sides. Each episode you'll think, one side will just get an advantage, then the next episode, the other side will get it, like this sort of chess match. I think that's brilliant, and I'm really captivated. What Game of Thrones does very well is it brings you in and captivates you with the supporting characters really well and fills them out, whether it's Kristen Cole or like there's a moment with, we're introduced to Alicent's brother, Hywyn. Owen of Hightower, Alicent's brother of Prince of Hightower, whatever his name is. There's
a lot of
played by Freddie Fox, and he's not a character we've met before. And his screen time is usually shared with other characters, and it's kind of fleeting. But typical to Game of Thrones, as we became to know it, is that there's one scene where he just talks to Alicent about what it's been like to live at Highgarden and what it's been like to be the eldest son, to therefore take on the estate of the Hightower, but to have Alicent supersede him as queen, it's a short scene, 2 minutes, but just in that moment you get enough detail about that character to feel something more complex than just one-dimensional. And they do the same with Kristen Cole, and they also do this wonderful thing where they mirror or reflect stories that are happening elsewhere within stories. So there's a nice bit where Damon's at Harrenhal for the entire series, and then we cut to a conversation between Laris, great character, Laris, the clubfoot Laris, who wants to, slither his way to the top, who's talking to Aegon, and he's talking to Aegon about his birth at Harrenhal, and it's like that story is so more well informed because what we've seen with Damon, completely different story, but your story in Harrenhal has really informed that, and I just think it's wonderful. I think the performances are great as ever, like. Better than Game of Thrones in a way. Not only I think you've brought in, you get Game of Thrones, the only sort of headline actor, established actor was Sean Bean, and obviously that was just for a certain season. And then you let the talent within grow. And I do think some of the early acting talent was a little ropey.
A little Sky original programming.
Yes, but whereas I think this has got A-star caliber.
They got all the money, all the budget,
from
all
the
the
beginning.
prestige,
So obviously you get Risa fans and Matt Smith, but like
Emma Darcy.
Emma Darcy. Well, that's what I was going to say. Emma Darcy is just so fierce and wonderful and empathetic and brilliant. I'm just like, you are totally that character.
They have this like these cat-like eyes that have like wisdom and strength and everything in it. It's just all in one.
They have this brilliant voice that sort of can be strong and fierce, but also sympathetic.
Empathetic,
And then contrasted with that, I love Olivia Cook's performance because Olivia Cook's whole delivery is not mannered in the sort of old-fashioned sense of Lord Hightower, would you do this? She delivers it in a very in a sort of meter or patter that's very modern. I find in her delivery,
which really grounds it.
Really grounds it, very refreshing. Obviously, there's the whole sort of distracting factor about the ages of the characters.
Yeah.
Like once you just put that aside, it's there. But I find that really captivating. And I have one minor gripe, which is about. I love Matt Smith. I love Matt Smith, and I love Damon as a character.
He does Royal so well.
He does fantastic, and he has this whole season in Harrenhal, which is fine, and so Simon Russell Beale's in it as well. And I love him as Simon Strong in this, but I'm like, I want to see Matt Smith interact with more characters. I felt him a little bit siloed,
He's a great,
in the leaky castle,
violent, headstrong character. You want to see him humbling other people and challenging them.
But did you not feel he was like a little bit in his own side quest? And I was like, can we have him back, please?
Yeah.
But still wonderful, still engaging. And even though I think some people I've seen have been a bit disappointed by the finale, expecting something bigger. But I was reading this morning, the directors and the creators were saying, no, that will come. That is in the beginning of season 3, but we are limited on resource, and we can only deliver so much. Maybe by the writers' strike as well. Who knows? But also budgetary. And they've also announced that it's gonna be 4 seasons. That's it.
I like that announcement.
Yeah.
So on budget, there are so many more, especially in the early seasons of Game of Thrones, just detailed wides of King's Landing.
Yeah.
These like really intense graphical representations of places that don't exist. And you're like, because they've got the budget.
Yeah.
I broadly agree with like most of the things you said. I'm instantly reminded. I watched a 15-minute recap on season 1, by the way. It's a really comprehensive recap.
This is a show in which there is Rhaenys, Rhaenyra, and Rhaena. Like
really bad.
Alaric and Eric.
Aegon, Aemond, Aerys, who they reference. It's just
the old Viserys, the young Viserys, Jaehaerys. Oh God.
It's a lot. And I was immediately reminded as soon as I started just how much of a really effective political drama Game of Thrones is. And it really, really is very good. I actually watched this with my laptop on my chest and headphones on. So the screen, it's a really unique way to watch things, but it really kind of works. And there are just lovely moments where people are having conversations in Dragonstone or King's Landing, and they're talking about the capacity and what they could do and what the threat is. And if you listen, you can hear the sounds of the dragons beneath their feet growling and rumbling. And it's this ever-present nuclear button that they really don't want to press. There's this lovely policy of mutually assured destruction where like no one will really use their dragon, right? No one would, but if in the case it would. I agree. The Matt Smith side project, I find using dreams as foreshadowing in films and TV show, lazy writing at the best of times. I say if you're going to do it, please do it sparingly. I do find that these things are often immediately recognizable as dreams and dream logic, and so they're not really that effective. I think there are better ways to do foreshadowing in writing. And the fact that Matt Smith's character spends a lot of the time in dream logic, having dreams that foreshadow things, I got a little bit tired of it. And the same as you, I would have rather he had done that for half the number of episodes and found himself back with the rest
With
of the
real
gang.
people, yeah.
So that to me, I was like, this is a bit of a waste of time. My interest is waning. Even if you're alluding to things relating to A Song of Ice and Fire, I'm not that interested in calling back to things of the old series. I quite like what you're establishing with the new series. I think so. Here's my take. I felt like, even if these guys are saying, yeah, that's season 3, we've thought about it, it was a lot of setup without enough payoff for me.
You think?
There were a couple of really great highs for me. I think the ending of season 4 was just brilliant.
Episode
like
4,
the spectacle was just fantastic.
fantastic,
And
good point.
equally, the finale of episode 8, I thought would just really got me going. And I got 7 and 8 actually really got me going, got me so excited. But it was just a little bit not quite enough payoff. I'm willing to give this show the benefit of the doubt because series of Game of Thrones generally have always been, we're going to really take our time. It's going to be a bit of a slow burn, but the payoffs and the highs have always been so great. Yeah. So I have faith, but I did finish the season being like, could we not have just got one more episode or two more? Or could we not restructure your seasons a bit so you had something in season 2 to deliver? Because season 2 is very much it builds to here's where we're at and here's how it's going to go down, but you don't see it go down. That's kind of a little bit
to be continued.
It's
really.
a real to be continued. It's a very epic moment. It's very cool.
Great.
But I was a little bit like, how long have I got to wait? 2 years? Okay.
Yeah, but the thing is, I agree with you, but I'm like, I will also give it benefit of a doubt because it's like the fact that we've got a good Game of Thrones TV show again is a miracle, and I don't want to ask too much of it. I don't want it to do a bear. Take your time and do it right. And if you know that you've got a 4-season arc and you're building towards that, fine. It is a shame that we'll have to wait 2 years.
I think the characters in this one, compared to Thrones, they're a little bit less likable. They're a little bit more mopey and miserable. Game of Thrones has always been dark, but they're like, Tyrion had a lightness to him, and even, Jon Snow and Sam Tarly had a sort of more playful dynamic. And I started wondering when I was watching this, because it is a knotty political drama at its core. To me, I hold it up like any of the great political dramas when you think about all the things at play. And I think about what made Game of Thrones so successful is that it had that, and also rumbling underneath it was the threat of evil itself, of darkness, of winter and the Night King and all of that. And those two fronts playing off each other made for a really good show. And I was thinking, is this missing that element? And I actually am glad they're not touching it, and I hope they don't deal with the long night and winter. But I'm wondering, because I didn't get a payoff, is all just the whispering in the corridors and the King's Council meetings enough?
Oh, you want to have your cake and eat it. Because when we finished Game of Thrones, the main series, we were like, oh, this show used to be about whispering in corridors. And then it became about fucking epic battles. Yeah. I don't know. I think trust in them.
That's the thing. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
It's like you wanted another episode 4. When they gave you what happened in episode 4, you
and everything is different like now moment. Yeah. Because you sort of built me for the
one more
next
like
4 episodes.
major character to be wiped out or something like that.
Some new sort of twist on the chessboard. But like I said, Game of Thrones has always been a slow burn. They've always rewarded your attention. All those little conversations that you would otherwise not have. They have these hour-long episodes, and it's great.
When they said they are aiming to do 4 seasons, though, I was kind of relieved at the fact that HBO has not been like, no, we want you to drag this out to be like Game of Thrones was before. Yeah. I also do think, somewhat cynically, the HBO probably said, you want a major battle sequence that's like a movie, we'll do that for you. Can we do it in the next season? Because it's easier to qualify with our financiers
next
when we go, we've got 2 seasons of great viewing figures behind us instead of 1 season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and the dragons look great.
Oh, yeah. Always. I never doubted the CGI for a second.
It always works, and I'm listening with headphones, and when there is dragon combat or when they are, standing behind a character, I feel it. Yeah. I feel the sense of dread, and there's a plot point which is, in order to ride a dragon, you really can't show fear. The dragon will smell the fear, and it will just be game over. And I'm really like playing along, trying to be like, how would I do it? And they work as these nuclear bomb things that they've got at their disposal. The dragons are very effective, and I'm really glad that they do work.
I do like the again on the writing, this thing that there are characters, minor tertiary characters that are introduced early on in the episodes, and you're thinking, okay, why are we following these characters?
Yeah.
And at first it's
Same
like,
with Thrones.
and at first of all you're like, oh, this is just to add color and texture to what's happening with the common folk and what's happening in King's Landing on the ground. And I liked it. That was enough for me. But then what's brilliant, like with all Game of Thrones, is those threads actually become quite significant to the plot that when they're pulled together, I go, oh, I see. That's why we've been spending time with these people, because it turns out,
It's like, do you remember in Game of Thrones? Actually, no, I don't want to spoil it. But you know what I'd love them to do? Not now. Like, let House of the Dragon finish.
Yeah.
Rest the IP. Come back. I think...
Rest the IP.
Rest the IP. No, we're going to get Game of Thrones forever. Yeah. I'd really like them to do... And I don't often long for prequels, but I'd love them to do Robert Baratheon's War and the overturning of the Mad King. And Ned and Jaime Lannister and that whole saga that led into Thrones. I think that would be such a good series.
Yeah,
they obviously tell the story in the main show.
Yeah.
But
that's a direct prequel then, isn't it?
A direct prequel. So I think you let these characters age out, you cast younger versions of them, and you do Robert's Rebellion. I think it would be brilliant. And like the Lannisters' role in that.
Would you get like, what's his name, Robert Aramayo back to play the young...
Yes, yeah, I'd get Robert Aramayo back because he did a really good job in Thrones of playing a young Ned Stark. I think it would be really good. And you can play with those plot elements as well if people have seen it. I think it would be good. And I just, they make high quality shows. I have faith. And you know what? You could do a limited series. You could do one limited series.
Yeah. I actually also...
See a young Jaime Lannister. It'd be brilliant. And like, you know, there's all these moments when Ned Stark and Jaime Lannister have these scenes where they talk about you just stood there and watched. There's no blood on your armor. It's just great.
Yeah.
Love it.
So thumbs up. Broadly, I mean, not even broadly, but thumbs up.
I think season one's stronger.
But, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably you're right,
so
actually.
too.
But also, well, I'm happy that I still am very happy that it's the quality that it is, given how that show ended and given how it's... If they continue at this level of quality and are able to pull this off for 4 consistent seasons, you could argue it's better than the original series.
I think so too, because,
if they're able to keep their hand on the tiller just well enough...
I might rewatch Game of Thrones after this. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's really
it is good. But I'm
Tally's
wondering
only
how much of what I thought was good about Game of Thrones was the what you were expecting to happen.
It would be my kind of third time going through it. So I watched it obviously through.
Yeah.
And then ahead of season 7, I watched it through and then finished season 7. So I've technically seen it through twice.
But I wonder how it views now you know where it's going.
Well, yeah, I know.
Because I
think it actually makes the last season worse. It'll only do that, but I think there's still a lot to
I felt like Game of Thrones, the original series, was kind of, it was like taking out a debt to the future to fuel its current. So every season was always fueled by what was to come, and that did well. And they were taking out a debt to the future. And when they got to season 7, they had to pay that debt to be like, okay, the future's here now. What are you going to do with it? And they went, oh Christ!
Oh, shit. Well, I always felt like when we got to season 5 and 6, again, I'm not spoiling anything. To me, it really felt like
when they went past the books
point
as well.
And when they were past the books, it felt like the halfway point in the story.
Yeah,
2/3 at a stretch. I was like, you've done. It doesn't feel like we're about to finish, and of course they finished. Game of Thrones, it's such ancient history now.
Whatever,
to
we're
go
back.
into it.
We're back
But as always, guys, we'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any on House of the Dragon Season 2. Please keep them spoiler free. And we'll be back in probably 2 years to review House of the Dragon Season 3.
We'll create our own little box set of Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3 reviews. You can watch us age through time.
As always, hello at popkitchenpodcast.com. Should we move on to some emails?
Let's do it.